to provision yourself and have seats so we can get this started as ever. Now, let me welcome you all again today. We are missing one full class that is individuals in that class who are on a field trip today. So with that in mind, we're videotaping it, and this will go up on the website, the Developing Global Perspective for Educators website, which I hope you're all familiar with, DGPE website. So if you've missed anything in today's presentation, or you're vague about something, just you'll find it posted there by Brian, by when? Do we think it would be up there?
Good question.
When Nicholas puts it up.
Shortly.
I want to thank Brian very much for doing this, one of our graduate students who is a man of many talents. And thank Project Tembo here for coming back again, not for having decided that they'd had enough after last day.
I'm a new member. We recruited Susan Smith. Susan is a teacher, was a teacher with Yellow Cross School Board, and Susan has had the pleasure of working with Tanzania for the past 2 summers.
Today's meeting is probably the last one for a while. I will set another one as you tell me you need one, all right? But what we want to do today is to get an expression and a commitment from you for a given area. I have created these sign-up sheets and didn't notice that I was only doing Form 1. You all received this in the as an attachment as part of the reminder for today's meeting. So what we decided to do to deal with my error here is that if you're interested in that subject area, but perhaps not the Form 1 stuff, if you would sign up on that. So you see with physics, I included work, kinetic energy, and mechanical energy, but there are 2 other areas that could be addressed. And if you would just like to put your name and email is really critical, somewhere along the margin, we'll work this out as we go along. These sheets are going to go to the Project Tembo coordinator, who is going to be supervising that particular subject area. All right, so that's why it's so important that you put your email on there. I've got your list of emails for my messages, and they do as well, but they're not connected to your names, of course, so they need that information to be able to coordinate this with you. I would just like to refer you to this very high-tech sheet in front of you as to what we're hoping will happen from here on in. As I said, this is the last meeting that I anticipate we'll have for a while, because at this stage you're declaring your interest and probably forming teams. We see this as most effectively being done with a curriculum team. That's how most of our curriculum is written here, and it's in fact how most of the curriculum is written in schools. People don't typically write curriculum entirely on their own anymore. So you're asked to choose an area, sign up, including your name and your email address. Form a group of between 3 and 6, and it's possible that you are here speaking for people who weren't able to come. I know we have at least 2 people who work on Wednesdays and have just not been able to attend. You may know those people, and so you might add them to the group. In any event, we need those names. The only way that Project Tempo can go ahead on this is to know who is working on any given theme. What do we need from you? In the end, what we need from you is a unit of 5 lessons for whatever theme it is that you picked up. What would be included there? These are very general designations. If you are going to use this project to replace an assignment in one of your other classes, and there are several opportunities for doing that, then use the format that that professor has mandated or that is given you as a preference, all right? We don't need the Ontario outcomes that this fits into. That just isn't relevant. But all the rest of the stuff is pretty standard that appears on a lesson plan. So we need some sense of what your objectives for that lesson would be. Typically they're defined as specific outcomes in our system, but you can use that word quite easily. You can use outcomes if you like as well. We need a clear listing and provision of the materials. One of the points that was emphasized last day is that we cannot assume that these materials are available in Tanzania. In fact, they are very likely not available, and they won't be used. Your lesson wouldn't be used if you don't provide the materials that are needed with the lesson. So that's one thing to keep in mind in designing these lessons. The material should not be so voluminous that they require duplication or they are difficult to read. You must attend very closely to readability. Very low readability if the students are going to be using these. But really the emphasis that I would recommend for you is that while you might very well want to spring this off some item, some diagram, some poem, some whatever it might be, your real emphasis will be on strategies, which is what you're going to do with it, all right? So this is strategies are then, as a general term, you may be using different terms, but it's what pedagogical use will you make of those materials? And it's divided into two categories typically. What are the strategies that the teacher uses? The teacher directs the students to do such and thus. But then also student strategies. So typically there should be some seat work, some application on the part of the student once the teacher has shown how this is done. All right? I know that you're just getting into lesson planning, so this is new, but this is sort of it's just the conventional format for it. Then what information is needed? Probably that information is going to be in your materials, included in the materials. Be really wary about information pushing. We don't need huge amounts of information. We just need it paired right back to the essentials. And then assessment. We need 3 examples of 3 assessment tools over the course of the 5 lessons. This is so that this can be used to replace one of your other assignments. This is the typical requirement in 3103. But it's a good requirement anyway, where you've got students who are struggling academically. The guideline is always to assess regularly with low threatening assessments. So if possible, after each lesson, so that they know that they've absorbed what is to be done, all right? You would never have a unit test at the end. That is far too threatening a strategy for students who are not very secure in their academic skills. So the assessments then. Now, number 4, 2 options then. We discussed this, and this is entirely up to you as students. If you're using this for a course, for example, 3103, ensure that you satisfy the requirements there. That's your job to look at. And I know, having talked about this with Nicholas often enough for his 3103 classes, I know that this will satisfy. But if you need a format, make sure that that's included. But if you're using this for community service learning, go to the site and register under EV placements. Now, I've had several emails from students saying, can't find it. That's because they haven't posted it yet for some weird reason. Oh, I know what the reason is. They're backed up, right? They have a lot of projects that come in this time of year. So watch for EV placements, and under there you'll find the project tempo. For that, you need to be able to declare 30 hours of work, which this will very likely be.
Could you expand a bit more on that? I wasn't really told much about the CSL.
Community,
yeah.
Okay, so the community service learning is an option for anything that you do in a voluntary capacity that's connected to your program. Okay. And in this case, you'll be signed off on this once you keep a log sheet as to how many hours you're putting into a given project. And someone in a professorial capacity needs to sign off. Either Tracy Crow or I will do that in this project. And I will do it in consultation with the Project Tembo folks. Why would you do it? To do that is an extra then. You're adding 30 hours to your workload. You're doing it because you would like the experience of this and you'd like it to be unencumbered, which fitting it into another course might encumber. Okay. And what does it give you? It gives you a certificate at the end indicating that you have been involved in community service learning. And it is very useful in showing that you go beyond the requirements for a course. This is very impressive for any principal, any department head who might be hiring you. That's exactly what they're looking for, somebody who's keen. And it indicates both keenness and competence. So very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to confirm, for those of us that can't use it for the course, we can still register with the CSL as well?
You can, but you have to do something else. You can't use this both places, right?
Oh, we were told we could. We were told
you
that
need
it would
to- well,
still
you'll
count
need
as volunteer hours and that we could use it for a course.
Okay, by whom were you told? back. Sorry?
I guess
Nicholas?
by Nick, but
You
I
think-
I'm sure that-
Then I'll speak to Nicholas about it, but the assumption of the community service learning is it's above your regular requirements. Now, you may be doing other things that would take 30 hours. Yeah.
Well, I'm just assuming that we would put a lot more into research and that kind of thing for Project Tembo than we would if we were just doing it for a
Yeah, I
class.
think you probably will because of the specificity of the context,
Right.
right? But, so I'll speak to Nicholas about this.
Okay.
I would encourage you to do so as well, but I do want to emphasize that what he might have been talking about is that if you're involved in some other project that would add hours, it might add up to 30 hours, beyond what is required in the course.
Okay.
Okay? Now, he would be the judge of that in the end because he would typically be signing that off. If it's for his course. Okay? So you clarify this though.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes?
Yeah, it's just we didn't have class yesterday because there was a death in his family or something. So we were supposed to be a bit more informed when we turned up today.
Oh, I see.
We didn't have a class.
Okay.
But just logistically, because for that class, we're supposed to get into groups and do curriculum development.
Yes.
That's basically this.
Yes.
But I'm worried that here, if we sign up, we're going to end up in a separate group, and we're going to have to somehow use our information from that group to coordinate with our other groups.
No, as long as you've got all the names, you're welcome to have that group.
Like if we
You're
could-
controlling this by the sign up, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. So those in our global cohort for curriculum development, if we get together
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
get a group of say
Yes.
5 together,
Yes.
and we can sign up for a single
Absolutely.
thing.
Fine. Just fine. Yes.
For the 30 hours that we contribute toward this, will be given a certificate for it.
Yes.
For it, like, I've signed up for KNR as well, and I'll be doing 30 hours with that.
You get a separate certificate.
It's a separate certificate,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
additional things.
That's right. That's right. It's each 30-hour module. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have a whole sheet of these things, it speaks volumes too. Anything else? The last point here, you should regularly be in touch with your Project Tempo coordinator. And I think they've now all put their names there, or they will do so. We'll make sure you've got that information by the end of this session. These are the folks who will clarify any questions you have specific to the curriculum. All right? If you've got any other concerns, like about CSL, feel free to email me. Yes.
Can we do more than one?
Yes, you could, but I
Like,
think I would sign up for one
As
now.
we may not meet the hours necessary, if we double
Yeah.
up.
I want to encourage you to do one now, and then you could declare and do another one later, if
Okay.
you would choose. I
So
think
we
it's
won't-
very
don't do
important to
anything
not
else.
overextend.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions on this? Yes?
Is the 5 lessons in the unit for each subcategory of the
Yes,
yes.
yes, it is. It is. Yeah. Now, it did occur to me as I was making up the sheets that there are some of these that you might be able to blend. So under chemistry, for example, if you look at the lab work one, you've got lab rules, lab equipment, and lab safety. That's an excellent topic to have them develop. I'm sure this would just level a number of these gals who have never been in that kind of situation before. And you probably know a lot about this from university. I could imagine those 3 being blended into one 5-lesson module. So there are some that would lend themselves to it very well. Under energy and power, kinetic energy, I think I could imagine you 5 lessons in that. So we'll leave it to you, and that's the kind of questions that you'd want to send off to your Tempo folks. Okay? Any other questions before we? Yes, sir.
Sorry, just quick one. I don't know if we started this last week, but with the 30 hours that we're trying to be, is it for the course of the year? Like, is the end of the project?
No, we are hoping that these will be completed by Christmas. Yes, we're looking at this as a first term. We can talk further with Tembo once we've got this in hand and see, I mean, for example, your question about whether you could do a second one.
Yeah.
It may be that we could do a second round at that point. I think we should think of it in terms of this term for the moment. It also serves your purposes, I think, more directly if we think of it as a first term thing. Marion has mentioned this earlier, that at this stage, and you're well aware of this, at this stage, the more lessons you can conceptualize and put into lesson plan format, and to sort of get your head thinking along those lines, the better off you're going to be when you get to your practicum. This will serve you very well with a particular population because it is so specific to its needs. But you'll find students who are struggling generally, and you'll find that many of the strategies that you blend into lessons there will be applicable in your practicum. So we'd like to see you have them done by the time of the practicum. And there will be back and forth with your Tembo coordinator, probably asking you to do something more with such and thus, right? So there'll be a little bit of time needed there. Yes, ma'am?
Just checking, working with a group of 4 or 5 other people, it may not take 30 hours to put together a good unit.
May not, in which case we can look at what you'd like to do as a second one. And it might, too. You're ready?
Right.
Don't want to underrate how long early lessons take to put together and how long it takes you to do a unit plan. They are very, very time consuming.
And even for an experienced person, it's like you have to start adjusting things. That's why it's called.
So, but that might happen. And if it does, we'll deal with it when we get to it. We'll make sure you get your 30 hours. Yeah, we'll work it. We'll work it. Okay, yes. Sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, question. Are you asking for 5 lessons also because there's like 5 days a week, so they make you
No,
okay.
we're asking for 5 lessons because that's the standard here, and in order for this to be workable, for you to apply it to some other setting, we're happy to have you double apply here. You need 5.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yes.
Can you paint me a picture of basically like what their school's like? I mean,
Yes, we did do that last day,
Okay.
and there will be some discussion today. Virginia's going to talk about the English as a second language learner, and which is very much the issue. Let me just say at this stage that whatever your curriculum area is, you would be expected to do some research on that as to what the situation is in Tanzania. So there's going to be some internet work here as you go through. Yeah. Thanks. All yours.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, on behalf of Project Tembo, thank you all for your enthusiasm, for your energy, for your commitment to this project. I'm really pleased that so many of you have come back, and I appreciate that not all of you are here today. But thank you. Before you've even started, we really appreciate the work that you've done and your commitment to this. We think it'll be a really exciting project. We spent some time between last meeting and this going through the subtopics so each of the 6 areas were selected quite carefully because they are relevant to the school. You've asked about what it's like in the school system. These are topics that are important for the girls, and these are in particular topics that they tend to struggle with. The basic, physics, math, chemistry, in addition to that sort of, your civics. We did not do history because history tends to be very, very specific, and we are not sort of comfortable sort of talking about a subject matter that might come quite comfortably to the local school system. Sorry?
Or English.
Or English. Yeah, or English. Because English is embedded within what we're doing. We've taken then each topic, and as Sharon has already indicated, some are quite broad. You may look at it and go, whoa, that's a big subject. I mean, there's subjects of multiple years of study across a curriculum. But we certainly, the next sort of phase will be to guide you as to what that means for the students, what kinds of things that they might be exploring in their textbook, some of the resources that they might have, trying to sort of put it into context, what it might mean to study the night sky in Longido in a secondary school, and what it might mean for the girls, what they might already know and appreciate, and then what it is that they might have to know from an academic perspective. So that's where the next sort of phase goes in terms of bridging. Some of them can be compressed, some of them are quite distinct. So I welcome that dialogue. Susan, Marion, and I have each chosen to take 2 subjects and then work with the students that are doing. So I've got physics and math. I welcome all of your support. And I hate to tell you the last time I looked for the math textbook. But that's my area of what I've been doing with the girls over the last couple of years, and so that naturally fell to me, as did other areas to Susan and Marion. think that's probably, any questions about the topics themselves or the subjects?
Virginia, can I just say
Yes.
that I am in the process of filming them all in, Form 2 and Form 3, the ones that I left off. So if you want to come back and check this at the end, you're welcome to do so.
Any questions about topics?
Are you going to give us a special guideline or a margin of the textbook so we have an idea what they're studying so we can rework on it? Or how the process works? Like for example, I'm going to do math in the area. Just areas and then that's it? Or is there going to be specification?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is try to bridge between the textbook and the topic in general. What I would prefer not to do is sort of latch on to the actual chapter in the book because then it becomes quite specific to, you know, A, B, C, D, but rather look at what is general to perimeter and area at the intermediate level. What are some of the basic concepts? And I'm going to try to fill in the context in which you'd be looking at that. So what are some of the real examples that might be relevant to that? The same with simple machines. There's another good example that I could go to. I think I referred to this last week. What might it mean? What would be some of the simple machines that they might be familiar with? And how can you connect that to the lessons that you would be looking at for the simple machines, rather than just giving you the textbook and here, go with the chapter of the textbook. Eventually, as you learn, you will then put it into the context of the textbook. That's just one resource. There's lots of resources there. Yes?
We're going to be readily available to the textbook.
We have the chapters from the textbooks that are part of the school syllabus. So we have copies of those available. There's very little on the web in terms of the Tanzanian syllabus, but we have a familiarity with it. Unlike the Ontario curriculum, where you just go right in and it's right there. It's just not there.
Is there a specific grade that will be each member or just general as well?
No, again, because we'll encourage you to aim for this particular type of student, and we'll talk a little bit about the English as a second language situation and strategies that you need to think about. But again, if I sort of said grade 9, it might miss the fact that some of our students are really at a grade 5 level from a conceptual perspective, and some would be comfortable with, so it's hard for me to identify a particular grade level. Yes.
I know that you had said that, so you were in charge of math and physics, so if I was in a group for physics and we had a question I wanted to ask you, we'll have your emails and we can email you, but would it be possible to set up a meeting with you as well?
For sure. Yeah, no, I'm happy to come here as often as, but yes, I'm happy to try to arrange meetings. Yeah, sure, we can meet lots of places. Yeah, no, I think we're available as much as we can.
I prefer that.
Yeah. And I can show you things. I think some of it is also to try to sort of, look at and see what the situation is, and it makes it so much more real. I appreciate that last week a couple of people asked, sort of, how will I begin to understand? Through sharing visuals, you'll have a much better sense of what the community is like. Okay, I'm going to pass it over then to Susan and Mary to talk about strategies.
Last week, and I don't see the young lady here, someone over here asked a question about what personal challenges I had working with the students in Tanzania in terms of coping with them as a second language, and I made a rather flippant comment. I said that I had worked with deaf children and it really wasn't a challenge. Is the young lady here? Anyway, I got home and I got thinking about this, and I thought, you spent a year learning how to teach deaf kids, and then 25 years coping with how to teach them, and really, in many ways, there's a similarity here in terms of teaching the meaning of words. Somebody this morning said, "What about the rights of the girl child? What does that mean?" They don't even know that rights has another meaning beside left, the opposite of left, okay? That kind of vocabulary is going to be really important to develop, so there's lots of things there. I'm just going to talk about, if I had my glasses, it would be better, but I don't know where they are. I'd call it something that we want to do is try to give them an experience so that in doing this, then you can talk about what you're doing. This is a specific, it's really good for even with, like, let's say that topic about the rights of the girl child. You can do a little drama. That have some of the girls that are a little bit better do a little drama and then talk about what happened and introduce some of the words that way. But if it's a common experience that they've had, or they can tell you something that maybe has happened to them. Because once you get into it, even though the language is not there, they'll dramatize a little bit and use that in an experiential approach. Back in the old days, we used to say, go on a field trip and then talk about what happened on the field trip. Okay, but that kind of thing. Lots of visuals. Lots of visuals. It might just be something as simple as saying the word, writing it on the board, and then explaining, but lots of visuals. Something that you will not learn here, and that I think is really important, is they used to, like, if you're teaching a lesson and student gives you an answer, and you're not supposed to repeat that answer, right? Why not?
For everyone.
Yeah.
Then they learn that they don't have to check their voice or
Exactly. They don't have to listen because you're going to repeat it anyway. But in an ESL setting, it's really important to repeat it because that gives them another chance to hear the word. So what did you have for lunch today? Oh, what did you have for lunch today?
I haven't had lunch.
Well, what did you have to drink?
Orange juice.
She had orange juice. Do you like orange juice?
Yes.
I don't like orange juice. How many times have I used the word orange juice? See, that kind of repetition, and you just, it'll come. It'll come. Visuals, graphics, so important. A couple of summers ago, in math, I did a bar graph, and it was all about their favorite drinks. What was their favorite drink? Pop, you know, the different kinds of soda. So we had a whole thing, and it was just the bar graph. But how much language, you were interested in English, how much language comes out of just a bar graph? So graphics are important. Pre-teaching vocabulary. Pre-teaching. So teach the vocabulary and then put it in a setting. Okay? So for example, again, just going back to the rights of the child, you tell them about right, you know, right opposite left, and then the other rights, and then give them examples of the rights that they have. Virginia called this, and I've never heard the term, spiral repetition. Spiral repetition. Sorry, I can't even say it. You start by just a very simple concept. Today's Wednesday. Okay, but I mean, this is a. Give me an example from physics. Well, even in geography, this is a river. Okay. Then the next thing is rivers have tributaries. So you build on that. You're repeating the initial vocabulary and then putting in more. Rivers run through, rivers run to the ocean. So that kind of building on, and you're repeating the initial word, but you're building on the knowledge of that. I've got something here called skim and scan. Teach them how to read a text and be able to pick out the most important words. All right? Now I'm going to ask Susan to do a few more.
Okay.
And if you, please feel free to ask. Yes?
You said graphics are important. Do you mean something that the teacher can recreate on the board, or can it be a graphic on a handout?
It can be a graphic on a handout. But what was important, the one that I was telling you about, is that we created that together. Okay, we made the bar graph together. I did a survey on how many kids like Coke, how many kids like Fanta, how many kids like, what's the one? Tangawizi. Tangawizi is a drink that's made out of orange crush, ginger. Okay, so we had the bar graph, worked on it together, showed them how to create it. Then, but the other is also true. I think there's a section on statistics in one of the units. So, write this word down. There's a newspaper that you could read online called the Arusha Times. The Arusha Times. And sometimes in the Arusha Times there will be little graphics and things that you can use, but it also gives you a feel for the language level, which I think Sharon and I were talking for last week. We mentioned the level that the newspaper is written at. It will show you, this is a newspaper being published, and it will show you some of the grammatical errors that occur in print. But there's little statistics in that. And those are things that can be used because it's real, it's right there. I did one on accidents, the number of accidents that occurred on a particular road. Okay? But that's a really good source of information for you. Yes?
How do you spell Arusha?
A-R-U-S-H-A. Arusha. It's the city that's about 90 kilometers from where we are. It's the closest big city. See, I should have written that on the board, but I'm not used to these things.
No, you can't write it on the board, actually. It's a whiteboard.
Okay. All right. But that's a really good source, just for you to get a feel for what's happening there. And anybody who's doing human rights and things about women, you might find some really good articles there. They're archived and everything like that.
Good. And speaking of boards, a lot of times the chalkboard, a piece of chalk and a cloth would be your only resources for teaching something. It'd be the only thing in the classroom. And actually the teachers carry their chalk and their cloth around because you can't walk into a classroom and find it. So as far as handouts are concerned, I would use those sparingly because they're just not available. I mean, kids don't hold pieces of paper like that. They would have a scribbler and they would take notes, but they don't get handouts. They don't have books. They're not used to ever finding any information because they have no resources. So recently when I was over, I was exposing them to atlases and a set of encyclopedias that we had at the library. They had never seen these. They didn't know how to use them. Because, and I said, do your teachers never ask you to find the answer to something or to research something? No. So really, it's very knowledge-based. Their teachers write notes on the board, which they copy, and they memorize, and they regurgitate in exams. And that's it. They don't hold books in their hands, and they don't receive anything from the teacher.
I think the answer is no, but I'm not sure. So, access to the library?
The schools would have libraries, yes.
Are they like, what's the quality of the library?
You can assume that there is a world book available. There is a dictionary available. Those would be available to the environment that we would be using these lessons in. You can assume that there is the textbook, but probably they wouldn't go to that. I'm trying to think of resources that you might use. Maybe a picture dictionary. For those of you, picture dictionaries are fabulous for ESL. That's going to be in that library that we might use. There would be...
Are you talking about the high school library?
No, our library for these lessons,
okay.
for the lessons that they're developing. So as you're developing lessons, if you wanted to think about how students might use or look up something, they could go to a world book, they could go to a dictionary, they could go to a picture dictionary. That's about it.
Yeah. Now, having said that, in the lessons, the students could access those things, but I was working with Form 3 girls, third year in high school, and none of them had ever seen an encyclopedia.
Never been to it.
But we could with your lessons, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
But if there are like 60 to 80 kids in the class, I thought they said that not yet. So it's like even if they have access to an atlas, like realistically, are they going to be able to do research? Probably not.
No, and so they're not used to inquiry-based learning. Their learning is based mainly on the knowledge strand as opposed to the applied skills strand. So when I was doing a geography activity with them, they could recite the definition of latitude and longitude, but they didn't know how to use an atlas to actually locate something using the Earth's grid system. So that's the difference. What we want to do is kind of take them beyond just memorizing and regurgitating that knowledge and actually give them an opportunity to manipulate the information, to become engaged in some kind of activity. So when we were talking about assessment up here, you know, a test would not be appropriate in that situation, but after a lesson, for example, you might want to have vocabulary words on cards and maybe simple concepts in another card, and you could assess their learning by seeing if they can match them up. That's the kind of thing that would give you a quick indication, if they can read those words by this point, of whether they actually understand the vocabulary and context and the concepts. So anytime that you can get them to actually manipulate the words, the concepts, pictures, and so on, and engage them that way. This is something that they are not used to doing, and we've basically had to teach them how to do this because, as I said, they're used to just sitting and taking notes. And they are most comfortable sitting and taking notes because there's no engagement there. And so really a lot of what we had to do was to bring them out of that way of thinking and get them to actually participate and take a risk to be wrong. You know, take these cards and put them in order. So another...
Can I just jump in, Susan? Just to clarify, what we had spoken about last week, we had given you a sense of what this school system is like, and Susan's spoken a little bit about it just in her last couple of notes. The school system has 60 to 80 kids in a general classroom. The tech program has probably more along the lines of 15 to 20. That's what you're writing the lesson for. And you're writing the lesson in an environment where what Susan has just suggested about the cards and the cards matching, where you could do something like that. However, also recognizing that the students are coming from a classroom where there are 60 or 80, where the information is just being given to them. So it's being able to bridge what we're going to present and what they're used to. So you have to sort of take small steps.
That's right.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Will we get any guide, like I've signed up for math and doing perimeter area, right? In terms of like their language ability, but perimeter might be a little bit far, right? And that would be a little bit more difficult. But if we say like the distance around something, is distance something to understand? Like, can we almost get like not a scale, but an example of how it is that they might reproduce the information that we're trying to get to them, just so we know how to organize our lessons around what you're saying?
With academic English as a second language, the students will often have some of the key vocabulary, so they may have perimeter. What they might not have is measure, distance, long, short. The thing that they just won't have, they'll pick out the key words, but not the words that will allow you to use the language. So helping them to sort of work with that in a way. But yes, we'll be doing that sort of helping you to understand so that you can start, and then when you come back with some ideas, we do this sort of thing where we always say, bring it down.
Yes. Don't be offended, because I went through that too. So.
I went through it. My first lessons were, and then it was like, this is too difficult or whatever. So it's being able to adjust to that level.
Could we have access to maybe a lesson plan that was used in the past to see the kind of language that you guys use, and then we kind of have a guideline to turn it?
Yeah, we can share with you some of the things we've done, and I think that modeling is so important, and we recognize that for you that's important as well. If you can see something that worked, then it puts you in that context. And keep in mind that, you know, just like any teacher in the classroom, you have to be a model, you have to be an actor, you know, and you have to, don't be afraid of doing something where you're jumping around, because you're engaging them, you're getting them to take risks, and that's a huge thing for these students who are very afraid of making a mistake in many cases and not asked to participate a lot of times. Please use plain English. When you're talking about the math, for example, think about what you want to get across and then keep taking it down a notch until you're almost, I mean, think primary as far as, okay, think primary, and you don't want to use the same methods per se, but it could be that you need to use the same language. So simple sentences. I know one of the mistakes I made when I first showed Marion and Virginia my lesson plans is I had compound and complex sentences. And you've got to remember that they can't process that, they can't do that. So very simple sentences. Break it down into short sentences. And the same thing with instructions. Always give them an example. Always try to think, what would be the easiest format for them? Would it be matching? Would it be fill in the blank with the word box? They're used to that kind of thing where they have a word box and they select the word from the box to put in the blank with sentences. And we mentioned manipulatives. Any of you who are familiar with the literacy initiatives in the schools will know that we want to get kids working with the information, the concepts, the vocabulary, and
At the same time, those aren't really there, though.
no, but you can make a card. I mean, we can take paper over, and I know that I have taken over word cards that were laminated and everything. Well, you get to a point where you can't keep carrying all that over there, so. We do have simple materials like that, where we can cut out word cards and so on. Yes?
Just back to what you were saying about simple instructions. I guess the simplest instruction I could think of, well, kind of your document was like an IKEA instruction. So you want more like a visual, like a man doing something on the picture, and then maybe have the words under this, so it's more international understanding of what the future is as opposed to what words are. Words, right?
Right.
You could get your point across using that picture as opposed to having a complex sentence.
Exactly. Yeah, using pictures, graphic drawings, and yeah, you can draw. That's a great thing. When all you've got is a chalkboard and a piece of chalk drawing, it's a great skill to have. Yeah.
If we wanted to make little supplementary posters for you guys to put on the walls over there and things, maybe we'll carry that stuff over.
Yeah. Or reproduce it over there. I mean, even if you, correct me if I'm wrong here, but even if you did a little drawing of a poster you would use, then that can become, we can write it with magic marker or whatever, or we can actually just put it on the chalkboard we have or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could do that for sure, but as very rightly observed, we do have a laminator, in the learning center, and these are all, there's quite a range of craft-based activities that students have access to. So,
excellent. Yeah, well,
we
word
do it
cards,
for you.
The big thing now in literacy is the word wall up there, right? So, and all those, if you look into the reading strategies that are used now in the classroom, across the curriculum, and the word walls in classrooms are across the curriculum. So, when I did a unit in geography, all those geography terms were up on the wall. The kids were constantly looking at them. And so with ESL, that's so important for them to keep seeing those words. So if you look at how the literacy across the curriculum is used now in the classrooms, that will give you some excellent strategies of what to do. Group work, getting the kids in. As Virginia said, we'll have about 15 kids, so it's very hands-on. It's very good for hands-on. Very good.
Just in math, do they use a metric system or the imperial system?
Good question.
I didn't hear the question.
Metric or imperial? Veteran. Yeah.
Smart one.
Metric. And there, those, if anybody uses money, it's shillings. And it, Tanzanian shillings. And it's quite similar to our, dollar and 10,000, 10,000.
Big numbers.
Big numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like $5,000, 5,000 shillings for lunch, which is like about $350. But the system is basically on tens.
So as always, it's great to start teaching people within their context, their environment, and so on. And that's what we'll help you with when we meet with you. So if you're doing something like perimeter or whatever, then you want to start with what they have there, what they would be measuring, and use your examples to fit into to their environment, to Longito. Anything else? Anything else with ESL, Virginia?
I think that's great.
Yeah, drama. Marion mentioned drama. That's a great thing.
Okay, this, I've got permission to say something. These are the academic subjects that you're working on, okay? I think if you notice the timetable, it's about an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. We have these girls all day. So one of the other things that we do with them is drama. A couple of years ago, we had a fashion show and everything related to the fashion show. Last year they did a talent show. So if there are, camera club. So if there are any activities that you think, oh, this would be great, keep that in mind. Okay, just apart from what you're doing, say, oh, this would be a really great group activity for like 40 girls to do. Tie-dyeing was something we did last year. Okay, so something other than, and maybe sports activities or something, just recreate a bunch of people. So, but this is the academic part that we're focusing on, but we also do all this other stuff with them. Yeah. Anybody else have questions? Yes.
About the actual lesson plan.
Yes.
Are we assuming that we're writing for the teacher and that she'll be reading word for word what we have on the page? Or is this more for experienced teachers that we're just looking more for interesting activities?
Did everybody hear the question? It's a really good question. You're actually writing those lesson plans for the teachers that will be teaching them that are probably English as a first language. Okay?
So that's why it's important to be very specific and clear in the instructions.
But one of the other things that we are hoping to do, and I mentioned this to a couple of people, is we're hoping to set up something with Mount Miro University Faculty of Education. I don't think, Sharon, did we talk to you about this? Yeah, so we're hoping that next summer a couple of students from Mount Miro will join us, and that couple of you who are going would act as models on how to teach a lesson, and then hash it through with them. Okay, so, and my experience with a first-year teacher there is they have the same basic lesson plans over there that we have. Okay, like the objectives and the material, they try to do that. But their method of teaching is not an interactive approach like we have. Okay, but really the lesson plan is written for an experienced teacher. It's a really good question. Yes.
I was just wondering where the other teaching areas, like where they were divided among the two of you. Like you have the physics.
I have physics and math.
I have civics, biology.
I have chemistry and geography.
So maybe what we need
Yes.
is for you to get the email addresses. They're here. But Virginia,
I need to sign mine.
There are markers.
yeah.
There was one over
She'll
there.
put them, yeah, they're over here. I just don't want that written on me. They go right through to the wall, so here's mine. So look to see who your contact person is. I now have added Form 2 and 3. And it's quite a bit richer. Indeed. So there are other things that you could declare for. I guess the only other thing to say from our end is that if you're interested in doing it and you don't have your name, This is the list that we're working from now. I will send out all of those bulletins to everyone who has expressed interest. But in order for the Tembo team to work with you, you need to be on these sheets. I know that some of you are wanting to get other people involved in your team, from 3103 group, etc. We must have their names because that's the key.
So yeah, I think you're answering me, but just for clarification, my question was going to be, can we be sent these lists over an email and then respond to back an email of our group and what subject? Or you want us to today write down what we're doing, what subject? And
yeah, that's right. But you've got this list. You got there. Sorry, wherever it is. You got the list as an attachment last time, so you've already got this information. Okay. And we're now at the stage where we're assembling teams.
I think because some of us are waiting on group members who aren't here, and
some of you are
waiting on group members who aren't here today.
Yes.
And also want to meet with our 31 teacher tomorrow.
Great.
Is there somewhere we can go and write our names on these tomorrow?
Surely. What I can do is stick them outside my office.
Great.
I sure hope they were stolen there, but I will put them on the wall. My office is 213. And they'll be stuck all over the wall.
Great.
213 is just the second floor of this building.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll leave them there until, well, what would be convenient for you? End of the day tomorrow. And then at that point, give the names to the Tembo team. Okay, sure, I can do that. Yeah.
So should we hold off on signing up on the CSL website if we're doing it?
It's not up yet. You can't sign up yet.
Okay.
Just keep a watch on it. I don't know. I don't know why they're behind. I don't know when they'll get it up there. They say soon.
Okay.
So yeah.
so we were told the 17th to the 19th that we had to register.
Yeah. You don't. You don't.
Ignore that?
Yeah. Thanks very much, folks.